Welcome to Ultimate Choice 10, where we bring you the most chilling, mysterious, and thought-provoking stories. If you enjoy what you see, don't forget to hit that like button, share with friends, and subscribe for more videos just like this one. In the chilling world of true crime, some stories are so horrifying that they remain etched in the memories of those who hear them. Tonight, we delve into the dark and twisted tale of one of America's most infamous serial killers, Dennis Rader, also known as BTK, the man who terrorized Wichita, Kansas for over a decade. His crimes were horrifying in both their brutality and their meticulous planning. But perhaps the most terrifying part of his story is how he went unnoticed for so long. It all began on January 15, 1974, a cold, quiet winter day in Wichita, Kansas. The Otero family, a seemingly ordinary family, was about to have their lives shattered forever. The Oteros were a typical suburban family, Joseph and Julie, the parents, and their 4 children. But on this fateful day, their lives would be cut short by a man who had already been lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Dennis Rader, who would later be known as BTK, began his horrific spree by targeting the Otero family. He cut the phone lines and broke into their home. What followed next was a brutal series of murders. Joseph and Joseph Jr. were suffocated with plastic bags. The horror didn't end there. Julie Otero, the mother, was strangled with a rope, while Josephine, the daughter, was hanged in the basement. The Otero family's lives were taken so violently, so mercilessly. But even more disturbing, Rader didn't just leave behind a trail of death, he left something personal, something that would haunt the investigation. Rader had left semen at the crime scene, an intimate, disturbing touch that would come to define his pattern. When the police arrived, they were horrified by what they found. But for one member of the Otero family, the terror had only just begun. Charlie Otero, the oldest son, had been at school when the murders took place. He came home that afternoon to discover his family's lifeless bodies. Can you imagine the horror, the confusion, the disbelief? Charlie would forever be haunted by that moment, the moment his life changed forever. After the Oteros, Rader's thirst for violence only grew. On April 4, 1974, he turned his attention to Catherine Bright. Catherine, a young woman, had no idea she was about to walk into the nightmare that awaited her at her own apartment. Rader waited patiently inside her home, hidden in the shadows, until she returned. As she stepped inside, he struck quickly, overpowering her. He stabbed her 3 times in the abdomen before choking her with a rope. But Catherine was a fighter. She managed to call for an ambulance before slipping into unconsciousness. She was rushed to the hospital, but tragically, she did not survive. Catherine's brother, Kevin Bright, had been there that night too, forced to watch in horror as his sister was attacked. Rader had forced Kevin to tie up his sister at gunpoint before shooting him twice, leaving him for dead. But Kevin Bright did not die. Against all odds he survived, and his description of the killer would become one of the only clues police had in their search for BTK. It was a fleeting moment of hope in a case that was quickly spiraling into a nightmare of unanswered questions. 3 years passed, but the terror BTK spread didn't stop. On March 17, 1977, Dennis Rader struck again. This time his victim was Shirley Vian. He entered her home pretending to be a detective. He tied her up, as he had done with his other victims, but this time, he locked her children in the bathroom. A chilling reminder of how Rader's cruelty knew no bounds. Shirley was strangled with a length of rope, just like the others before her. But in this case, the children were spared from witnessing their mother's brutal death. Yet, how could they ever forget what they had heard? The terror of that night would never leave them. Later that year on December 8th, Rader claimed another victim. Nancy Fox, a 25-year-old woman, was alone in her home when BTK arrived. He strangled her with a belt, taking her life in cold, calculated silence. After the murder, he called the police to report his own crime, taunting them as he had done before, but still, no one had any idea who he really was. From 1977 to 1984, the terror seemed to stop, but the fear didn't fade. Dennis Rader had slipped into the shadows, quietly watching, patiently waiting, and then, something changed. After nearly a decade of silence, the murders resumed. But this time, Rader would leave behind something different. In 1984, Dennis Rader began sending letters to the local news stations. In these letters, he described his crimes in disturbing detail, almost as if he were proud of them. These letters became known as the BTK communications. Rader seemed to enjoy the cat-and-mouse game he was playing with law enforcement and the media. But despite these taunts, the case remained unsolved, and Rader's true identity remained a mystery for years. Dennis Rader's story is a chilling reminder of the monsters that can hide behind the most ordinary facades. For years, he taunted law enforcement, watching from the shadows as the world around him struggled to make sense of the brutality he unleashed. But even the most careful of killers eventually make mistakes. The story of BTK is far from over, but for now, remember the victims: the Otero family, Catherine Bright, Shirley Vian, and Nancy Fox. Their lives were stolen by a man who thought he could outsmart the law, and for a time he did. But in the end, justice came for Dennis Rader, though it would take more than a decade to catch him. Thank you for listening to this chilling true crime story. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, like, and share this video. Stay vigilant and never forget the lessons history teaches us. The truth is out there, even in the darkest of times.
Welcome to Ultimate Choice 10. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button if you enjoy true crime stories. Share this video with your friends to spread awareness about history's most chilling cases. Tonight, we dive into one of the most terrifying true crime cases in American history, the story of Dennis Rader, also known as the BTK Killer. For years, this man stalked, tortured, and killed his victims, leaving behind a trail of fear and mystery. His brutal crimes went unsolved for decades as he played a twisted game with the police. But how did he get away with it for so long? And what finally led to his capture? Stay with us as we uncover the horrifying truth behind BTK's reign of terror, only to walk into a nightmare. But this was only the beginning. 3 months later, on April 4th, 1974, BTK struck again. This time, his target was Catherine Bright, a young woman with her whole life ahead of her. Rader waited inside her apartment, hidden like a predator stalking its prey. When she entered, he attacked immediately. But Catherine fought. Unlike the Oteros, she refused to die easily. Rader stabbed her 3 times in the abdomen. Despite her pain, she still managed to call for help, desperate to survive. But the injuries were too severe. She didn't make it. Her brother, Kevin Bright, was also there. Rader forced Kevin to tie up his own sister at gunpoint. And after that, he shot Kevin twice. Miraculously, Kevin survived. He became the first person to describe BTK to the police. It was the first real clue. But would it be enough to stop him? Between 1984 and 1991, the murders stopped. The fear never did. Rader was still out there, but he was living a normal life. Working, going to church, raising a family. No one suspected the monster he truly was. Then, in 2004, after 25 years of silence, Rader sent a letter to the media. He bragged about his crimes, teasing the police, challenging them, and that was his biggest mistake. Rader had used a floppy disk to send his messages. What he didn't realize, police could trace the data. And with that, they found him. Dennis Rader was arrested in 2005. He confessed to everything. The man who had hidden for so long was finally caught. But the scars he left behind, they will never be forgotten. Thank you for watching Ultimate Choice 10. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share if you want more deep true crime stories. What do you think of BTK? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe. In 1977, a small town in Ohio was shaken to its core. People began receiving anonymous letters, revealing their most private secrets. The letters weren't just gossip, they were threats. The unknown sender claimed to be watching, always watching. And for some, these letters would lead to tragedy. Imagine checking your mail one day and finding a letter that says, "Someone knows your secrets. They know where you live, what you do, and who you're with." That's exactly what happened to the people of Circleville, Ohio. And as these letters kept coming, the town's fear grew. No one knew who was behind them, or who would be the next target. The first known victims of the Circleville letter writer were Mary and Ron Gillespie. The letters Mary received accused her of having an affair with the local school superintendent, Gordon Massey. One letter warned her, Stay away from Massey, don't lie about him. I know where you live. I've been observing your house and know you have children. This is no joke. It didn't stop there. Ron Gillespie, Mary's husband, received a letter of his own. But his message was far more disturbing. It didn't just warn him, it pushed him toward violence. Mr. Gillespie, your wife is seeing Gordon Massey. You should catch them together and kill them both. He doesn't deserve to live. The town was in shock. The letters didn't just target Mary and Ron. Soon, many residents found similar notes in their mailboxes. The messages became more threatening, more vicious. Someone in Circleville knew everyone's darkest secrets, but no one knew who the writer was. On a summer night in August 1977, Ron Gillespie received a phone call. We still don't know what was said, but whatever he heard filled him with rage. He grabbed his gun and stormed out of the house, determined to confront the person behind the letters. But he never made it. Speeding down the road, Ron lost control of his truck and crashed into a tree. He was killed instantly. Police ruled the crash an accident, but many believed otherwise. Ron had received a letter warning that his life was in danger. Some claimed he had been drinking that night, but others suspected something more sinister. Was he run off the road? Was his death arranged? The truth remains a mystery, and the letters, they didn't stop. After Ron's death, Mary became the primary target of the writer's obsession. The letters kept coming, each one more disturbing than the last. But things took an even darker turn when someone tried to kill her. One day, Mary noticed a vulgar sign about her 13-year-old daughter posted along a rural road. Furious, she stopped to tear it down. But something was off. Attached to the sign was a box. Inside the box was a loaded gun, rigged to fire the moment someone touched it. It was a trap. Mary had almost been shot. Authorities traced the gun back to Paul Freshour, Mary's brother-in-law. When questioned, Freshour denied any involvement. But after failing a polygraph test, he was arrested and convicted of attempted murder. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Case closed. Or was it? Even while Paul Freshour sat behind bars, the letters continued. More and more people in Circleville received threats and accusations. Some of them even led to deaths. If Freshour was the Circleville letter writer, how could he still be sending messages? Some say he had an accomplice. Others believe he was innocent. But no one could explain why, shortly after Freshour's release in 1994, the letters suddenly stopped. Just as mysteriously as they began, they were gone. The identity of the Circleville letter writer remains one of Ohio's most disturbing, unsolved mysteries. Was it a single person, watching the town from the shadows? Or was it multiple people working together to spread fear and destruction? Whoever they were, they left behind a legacy of fear. Families were torn apart. A man lost his life. A woman was nearly killed. And all because of a series of anonymous letters. The truth is out there. But some secrets may never be uncovered.